When you look at your body's metabolism, you effectively have two sources of fuel. Think of two fuel tanks. Now, everyone's focused on the carbohydrates and filling that fuel tank, but the reality is that that's a very, very small fuel tank. Like in terms of calories, the most amount of calories in energy that you can store via your glycogen stores is only about 2,000 calories. Where even on me, like I'm super lean, so like I'm sort of 15% body fat, which is I don't have a lot of fat on me whatsoever. But even at those numbers, I have close to 100,000 calories of available energy.
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining another episode of the Plant-Free MD. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Mr. Alex Mcdonald. Alex just, we'll hear from him, but Alex just performed a very interesting feat that the athletes on the carnivore keto world and the fasting world should be very interested in, and looking forward to hearing more about it. Alex, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to chat with you, Anthony.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you're very welcome here. And we met very briefly at a conference over in Sydney a couple weeks ago. But we were talking earlier about, something that you did. So if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to Carnivore and what this little event was?
Yeah, sure. So the starting point is I sort of fell into the low carb. I started low carb, ketogenic, and now carnivore space about 13 years ago. So it was quite a long time ago, and it's for me, there were a few things you kind of, once you learn, you can't really unsee or unlearn. And so once I got a taste for it, it was right, I'm going to have to learn more. So I started 13 years ago, sort of dabbling with sort of low carb. And then that's sort of escalated through all of my learnings to kind of achieve what I did, which was late last year, which was to be running 5 marathons in 5 days, completely fasted. So it was quite an aggressive challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And look, the other thing that most people think firsthand is, look, that I'm some kind of athlete, that this is like I'm a runner or I do something. So the other bit that does blow people's minds a little bit, my first ever marathon was the first marathon of this 5. So I had
Really?
never actually run a marathon before.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And so by fasted, you don't mean that you fasted for the first one, then you ate afterwards, and then you just didn't eat the next day. But you went 5 full days without eating the entire time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So picture a 5-day fast, and then each one of those days you back it up with the marathon. So it was a very extreme example, but
Yeah.
look, it was kind of where I needed to go, and it was a goal that I thought was very attainable given kind of what I'd learnt. And also it was punchy enough to really capture people's attention and go, look, this is something that I didn't think was possible. And if you can demonstrate something that is seemingly impossible, well, I would argue that maybe your model's wrong if you think that this isn't achievable and someone does it. So it makes people ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, and as you pointed out in different posts, is that the body has so much more energy reserves in our fat than we do in our glycogen and carbohydrate stores. Carbohydrate stores they're not meant for long-term energy storage. It's short term. And we replenish it. And actually studies in humans athletes have shown that carb fueled athletes drinking sugar water like Gatorade don't replenish their glycogen as fast as a ketogenic fat adapted athlete, a carnivore athlete does, just from their own fat stores. So the mechanistically it would make sense, biochemically it would make sense, but because we've just been so inundated with this idea that you have to eat carbs in order to burn carbs, you have to have carbs in order to have high intensity workouts, that we think that that's how it is, but that clearly is not the case.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that was the piece that um, I thought I really wanted to, well, one was to demonstrate that is this a real thing, but also to test it out for myself. I'm
Mhm.
one of those guys that if I can do it, then I know it's real. I can put my hand up and say that I've done it. So the way that I describe it, or of the approach was when you look at your body's metabolism, you effectively have two sources of fuel. Now, and I'll speak in layman terms, which is think of two fuel tanks. Now, everyone's focused on the carbohydrates and filling that fuel tank, but the reality is that that's a very, very small fuel tank. Like we'll talk
Mhm.
in calories, but because that's the numeraire that people understand in this world. So, in terms of calories, the most amount of calories in energy that you can store via your glycogen stores is only about 2,000 calories. Where even on me, like I'm super lean. So like I'm sort of 15% body fat, which is I don't have a lot of fat on me whatsoever. But even at those numbers, I have close to 100,000 calories of available energy. So the
Mhm.
key was, right, how do I tap into that? And if I can tap into that and use that fuel source, which most people ignore if you're sort of heavy in the carb world and that's what you're relying on, you're only using this really small fuel tank to fuel all of your exercise. So the key was you can't just turn up and do what I did. You have to put the work in to ensure that your body has become what's called fat adapted prior to it. So you earn the right to be able to tap into those fuel sources.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the analogy that I heard someone say once, and I really liked it. Was that you have like one of those fuel tankers that go around to gas stations and things like that, and refill. Sorry, little buddy here. So intruder. Um, that if you have an oil tank, like a big petrol tanker that goes around to petrol stations and refuels uh, the stations there, they got 30,000, 50,000 gallons of fuel there sitting there. And but they're not connected to that. They just have their little puny 50-gallon tanks on the side of the truck. And when they run out of gas, they're just sitting there on the side of the road with this 50,000 gallons right next to them, going like, oh, what the hell do I do? It's a bit of an irony. And we have that too. We eat carbohydrates, our insulin goes up, we block out our ability to access our fat stores, and we have 10 times plus the amount of energy available um, in our fat stores as we do in our glycogen. We run out of glycogen and we're just sitting there with all this energy there. We can't tap into it, you
Yes.
know? And so even when someone isn't slender, even when they're overweight or have excess body fat, you get gassed out and you
Mm.
thought, oh, I don't have any energy. Why is that? Have you become emaciated all of a
Yes.
sudden?
Yeah.
Then you're just not accessing your energy. You're not accessing your fuel tank. And so I like that analogy of the fuel tanker. But I wanted to ask as well, with those, so this is your first marathon. So how did the first marathon go? How was that your time, and how did they go? Did you just start breaking down and dying, or how did you feel between the marathons?
Well, you can imagine, look, a lot of planning went into this, and a lot of it was around, like I said, getting the diet right beforehand. So ensuring that number one, am I fat adapted? So
Mhm.
I to do so, I went um, well, super strict with my diet. So like what does that mean? It means zero carbohydrates, like not a single carbohydrate for call it I was super strict for about 3 months leading into it. And literally trying to eat as much as I can. So just think as kind of not quite lion diet, but hardcore sort of carnivore with some eggs mixed in, all that sort of stuff as well. So super super strict on that, and then once I was confident that I was fat adapted, then it was like, right, let's get to the start line. So marathon number one, again, I'd never done a marathon, so my objective from the outset was simply cover the distance because um, like the pace will be whatever the pace needs to be, and intentionally I wanted to run at a pace slow enough that I could manage my call it fat burn or my energy burn during the race or each of those marathons. So I didn't want to run super fast because the other issue was, look, I didn't want to pull a hamstring or do sort of
Mhm.
some muscle injury and have something else that's not fuel related that
Mm.
would mean that I have to tap out. So I was very, very conservative in my approach. And so what I did was I thought, forget the clock, forget the time. I'm going to monitor just my heart rate, and I'm going to try and run at a very specific heart rate or below. If I'm doing that, then I can control sort of how I feel. So marathon number one, all of that started pretty well. Like it was, I was running a course which was very flat around the regatta centre out in Sydney, where they had the Olympic rowing event. And the yeah, we started off a good pace, and kind of heart rate was all kind of pretty good until sort of I started getting niggly pains in sort of joints and the rest, because I'm not a runner. So
Mm.
that was the bit that that really got me. So that meant, look, the last part of that sort of first marathon was pretty painful, and I thought, right, this is I'm in for quite an experience here, because getting through marathon number one, I did it in about I think it was about 5.5 hours was the time that I did, but running to a heart rate of about 140.
Mm.
And then by the end, I thought, right, I've done my first marathon, and this is real. Like this is hurting. So it wasn't an energy issue; it was more the pain, because I hadn't earned the right to be able to run. So I'd done a lot of training, but to do that sort of volume, like you're talking years to actually earn the right for all the
Mm.
niggly bits um, because it's kind of like your weakest point you'll find out once you do that sort of volume. You can kind of get away with it with short distances, but in my case, yeah, it snuck up on me really quickly. So marathon number one, once I got it done. The other thing I need to add too, it was during September, so that's coming into it's like early spring here. So normally it's not all that hot, but it was a heat wave during that entire week. So marathon number one, it was about 33 degrees here, was kind
Mm.
of average temperature during that day. So it was super hot. So
Mhm.
that was a kind of an additional challenge. So and the forecast was it's going to get hotter, and it certainly did.
So how was your recovery, in between races? Because sometimes people run marathons and they're getting, swollen joints. They're not walking properly for a week. They're just like, swollen ankles. They get rhabdomyolysis. They get all these other sorts of problems. What was your recovery like between marathons, and did that continue to get more difficult as you went, or how did that go?
Yeah, so there's two parts to recovery. Oh, actually, there's a couple of elements I would say. One is in terms of like muscle soreness, and I'll talk about like my big muscles. So think my quads, my calves, etc., where I've done sort of events before. And I say events like running or just any sort of exercise, or first time at the gym. They hurt like hell, and you can't walk up the stairs and all of that sort of stuff. This time around, I had none of that. Zero, like zero's muscle soreness, call it those big muscles. The bit that did get me was my joints. So because my running style is not great, and I was putting pressure on certain parts, and there were parts of me that were weak where they need to be strong, and so my body was compensating. So in
Mm.
terms of the recovery, I had no issues with like those big muscles. The joint pain, particularly in my hip in the first one, was really, really, really sore. And my other plan was, look, rest is going to be a big part of this, and sleep is going to be really important. So try and come home, hydrate. As long as I'm eating, I need to plan it around that, and try and get to bed as early as I could, because I need to. The sooner I get to bed, the longer I can obviously rest, because I've got a start line the next day. Like I can't push that out. So,
Mhm.
um, so what I found was, yeah, day one was okay. It was pretty like not sore, but I knew what I was in for with the pain in my sort of hip and knees. And that was the part that mentally was like, right, I'm just gonna have to push through and just sort of ignore that. And then as we went through each day and I can run through each marathon, that definitely became more of an issue, I should
Mm.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did your times go? Did you try to keep them sort of at this as a similar pace, or as you sort of got more and more used to them, did you ramp it up a bit?
Yeah, so marathon one, like I said, was running to the heart rate, and it was pretty comfortable, and it was a reasonable pace. Like it was, to give you an idea of what pace is like, it was a pace where I'm moving quickly, but I could comfortably have a conversation.
Mm.
So that's how I would describe it. So literally people were ringing me. I was on the phone, like with and because I'm running by myself. As long as I've got an army of people running around me and chat or atmosphere, it's like,
Yeah.
it's a long time.
Yeah.
So, so, um, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. So, um, just remind me again, what was the question there? We were
Well, just
talking about.
yeah. So it's like, how did it go? Did you start ramping up your?
Oh yeah, time, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so marathon number one was okay. Marathon number two, I was in like super pain. So because of my hip and knee. So it was like, right, today's strategy, just get through, like survive.
Mm.
So it was like one foot in front of the other, just sort of get going. So marathon one, I didn't listen to any music. Marathon two, I did because I needed a distraction
Mm.
because it was like, right, how do I just get through this? So that was, and time wise, I think I was about 40 minutes slower than I was the marathon before.
Mhm.
But again, each of those was like, right, for the extra minute and the extra pain of pushing that extra pace per kilometer, it'll cost me, 10 or 20 minutes over a 5 to 6 hour run, which at the end of the day was like, and look, there's no one with a stopwatch that really matters. So,
Mhm.
so I definitely got slower for the second and the third. Each day had its own challenge too. So where the heat
Mhm.
was increasing, we got up to, I think, 38, 39 degrees, which
Mhm.
you could probably convert that to Fahrenheit better than I can, but it's close to
Well,
kind of
it's
100,
upper
I think.
90s. Yeah, it's
Yeah, upper
probably around
90s.
100. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's seriously hot.
Mhm.
So that was an additional challenge. That was very slow.
Mhm.
But what is interesting speed-wise, my second fastest of all my marathons was my final marathon. So,
Yeah.
which I think speaks a lot to, because the naysayers will say, "Oh, hang on, like you were um, one, either did you do it or didn't you do it, and
Mhm.
what pace did you go, and maybe you didn't have the energy, you were just pushing through." But I've got the data because I tracked absolutely everything.
Mhm.
That yeah, definitively, my last race was the second fastest of all of them. The first one I was fresh, so I think five
Mhm.
marathons in, I think it was a pretty strong finish, and I was very
Yeah.
proud of that. Yeah.
And so we were talking about this, before we came on, but the fifth one was what, the first four was just, you were just doing the distance, but the
Yes.
fifth one was like the full on Sydney Marathon. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So ideally, I would make each of the five marathons like an official event, but there's just nowhere in the world that hosts five marathons back to back. Like,
Mm.
so the plan was I could pick the final marathon being the official Sydney Marathon because it's obviously a big event and a great way to finish. And then I backfilled the four marathons prior to that, which was literally me like running around my circuit. So. And I even designed the circuit to be like a figure eight, sort of couple of loops, because it meant at the middle of that junction, I could park my car and top up on water and supplies, or if I, needed to change shoes or something, I could do so, and it wasn't sort of too far away. So
Mm.
I was very much a one-man band running around for those first four marathons.
Mhm.
But running in the official marathon at the end was absolutely brilliant. So because of the atmosphere and uh, like you got to tell you, there's a few mental games that go along in your head, but being able to stand at that start line on that fifth marathon and know that I've done 170 kilometers to earn the right to be at that start line against everyone else here, that was like a bit of a mental edge that I was like, right, I kind of felt like a bit of a beast mode. I tapped into beast mode a little bit there to go, okay, this is cool. But it's going to be hard, but that's I've been through hard already, so this is just an easy way to cruise home.
Yeah. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. So what sort of possessed you to do something like this? How did that cross your mind?
Yeah. Well, to explain that, you need to step into my shoes, okay? And so let's jump back to when I started sort of learning about or sort of the low carb world, and maybe sort of peeling back the layers around what people understand to be what is the dietary guidelines and what mainstream nutrition is all about. And once you pierce that, it's like, hang on, you can't unsee, and it's a whole different world. So when I first started, I went, right, I got a taste for this. And I went, look, I'm going to do this for a month. We'll see how we feel. And then, I'll go hardcore for a month. And if I feel okay, I'll find some middle ground sort of back a little bit. I did it for a month and I felt amazing. It was like my entire life I've been hungover every day when I got up. And all of a sudden now I wasn't. It was like, it was like night and day different. So way back then, I was kind of late 20s then. I was like, right, I was telling everyone about it. I was like, guys, you've got to learn, like, do this. And this is early days. Like, this is like early, like 2011. And and there's two kind of, if you picture a spectrum, at one end of the spectrum, a lot of my friends are actually doctors. And so, and they're very close friends of mine. So I would talk to them and say, hey, guys, you've got to look into this. This is really amazing. And the feedback was almost universally, look, I've got a med degree. Like I know medicine. Like there's nothing that you could tell me about nutrition that I wouldn't already know. So I'm not even going to look at it. So there was that. So I got dismissed because I don't have a medical degree, which I was like, right, I just want to have the conversation, but I couldn't even get there. The other side was like call it the average person that doesn't really care about the science behind it. They just kind of go, right, what's the shortcut for me to be healthy? And if I talk anything sciencey to them, their eyes glaze over pretty quickly, and it doesn't really land. So where I'm going with this is, so what I thought was, well, look, I've learned a lot of things here. If I can put this into practice and do something that is that aggressive, well, or that much of a challenge that most people would think it's impossible. So when I was planning this and I told everyone beforehand, they're like, you're going to die. Like it is not possible to do what you are going to do. And I'm like, well, look, the
Doctor,
science.
God damn it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, no, you're a lunatic. And look, I may be a lunatic, but I was pretty confident because of my experience. I've told everyone, look, I've had energy levels through the roof forever, and they're like, yeah, whatever. That's kind of just you. I'm like, no, it's a real thing. So I picked this for a couple of reasons, which was make it aggressive enough that people cannot argue that it didn't happen, like that, or that this energy reserve I tapped into just didn't exist, because I had to get the energy from somewhere. Hence the fasting element. Like, so you can't say at all that I got my energy from anything other than food. And it also, in terms of coming back to my spectrum, the doctors now, when you do something like this that they think is impossible, they ask the question, well, hang on, why? And it may be the seed for them to go, maybe I should look into this because you've done something that I thought was impossible. So it kind of ticks that box at that end. And at the other end, which is like the everyday person, they go, hang on, this is cool. Like, I didn't even think that was possible. Like, you've blown my mind. We're doing something that I just really didn't think could ever be done. How did you do that? And then that leads into a conversation around, well, this is what I did. I cut carbohydrates. I did this. And people are like, okay, I get it. I'd love to try that. So it was a way for me to bring all of my experience together and really sort of capture both ends of that sort of that spectrum. And it's been a really useful tool because people genuinely want to know like more about it and learn about it. And I've since had a lot of messages from people saying, thank you, look, you've inspired me to I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I haven't had the courage to do so. And look, now I'm going to have a crack and I'm going to do something. So it doesn't need to be marathons. It can be whatever, but that's not I'm not a marathon runner.
Doesn't have any merit. It could be 5 Ironmans.
It could be anything. Yeah, well, absolutely. But it could be like just pick whatever you enjoy doing, but know that that hopefully what I've done has been kind of that line in the sand, was just that sort of stake of the territory to go, right, hang on, if this guy's done it, what else can we do? What else don't we know, and how can we push it? So yeah, that I sort of, it dovetails into, look, this is my contribution, hopefully, to kind of see where else we can take it. I'd love other people to do sort of similar things and really push the envelope, because I think if enough people do that, it gets enough attention to go, well, we need to do this. Like, we need to look into this, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. It is funny, the hubris in any profession of experts. They just say, well, that's my field, and so I know everything. I can tell you for a fact that we don't learn any of this stuff in medical school. We don't learn nutrition to any degree. It's whatever your preconceived notions are on nutrition, that's now, I'm a doctor, so this is real now.
Yeah.
And so, it's just the same old things. Oh, you're not supposed to eat fat, and you're not supposed to eat a lot of meat. You're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables. Yes, I'm a doctor, and that's what you're supposed to do. Was that taught you in medical school? No, of course it wasn't.
Mm.
But that just sort of solidifies there your own prejudices. And so, and the thing is too, is that in a lot of areas around the world, it is changing. There are postgraduate degrees in medicine outside of the US now, but in a lot of them, they're just going straight out of high school, and they're not taking inorganic chemistry, a year of inorganic, a year of organic chemistry, a year of biochemistry. Those are all required classes for pre-med in America. So we have to take all these sorts of things. So, you know, in other countries, I mean, they don't even take biochemistry. So it's just like, excuse me, I'm the expert. And it's like, oh no, you're not. You haven't even taken biochemistry. You literally know nothing about the subject.
Yeah.
So, the arrogance to say, oh, I know everything there is to know when you haven't even taken biochemistry
Yeah.
is a bit maddening. But did any of them come around since you performed this?
Yeah, I would say some have come around. Like it's very slow. Like no one ever says, look, and I'm not talking about all doctors, and I'm not bashing doctors. It's more just to be able to have um, the challenge is to get someone to go, hang on, everything I've learned, because I've put a lot of time and effort into what I have learned, and for someone to come along and say, no, I just don't think all of that's quite right, takes a very uh, a high degree of humility, I'll have to say, to kind of swallow your own ego and go, okay, let me just give this a bit of a look. Um, so over the time, because I've been doing this for so long, I started in my early 20s when everyone looks fit, and now I'm kind of early 40s and everyone doesn't look fit. And I'm in better shape now than what I was when I was in my 20s. So the other side of that is, well, look, the results do speak for themselves to a degree there. Like, to the point where it's that obvious. It's not as though to say like I'm a super athlete or anything. I'm absolutely not. I'm just kind of the normal guy. But when everyone else is blowing out with the big, massive dad bods and all that sort of thing, it's people come back and go, hang on, remind me again what you do, because you kind of don't. What happened to us didn't happen to you over that decade. So maybe we should look into it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And I think that doing these things is a good mechanism for turning some heads and saying, and making people think like, oh, okay, maybe there's a bit more to this. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need a bit of a spectacle to sort of shock people awake, and then hopefully they are curious. And some people will just dismiss it and be like, ah, it's a fluke, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's always those people around, but
Yeah, well,
it,
this particular challenge, I was very deliberate about
Mhm.
how it would convey the message, because it could kind of easily be dismissed out of hand, just going, well, this is just another crazy guy that's looking to get clicks, and it's kind of that just trying to do something to get attention. That certainly not wasn't my goal. So I do recommend people go to my website, ketomarathons.com, because on there I do spell out kind of all of my methodology around what I'm doing, but also the team of doctors and professionals that were helping me. So I lent into them to get their to make sure that I was doing it the right way, but also to get their sort of lean into their credibility too, to say, look, this isn't just me going off doing something that I think is crazy. It's there's a very clear methodology that I'm employing. So yeah, because a big part of it is when you do something like this, it's like, well, it's just quackery and it's dismissed and you're not even going to look into it. I just need to create that little wedge to go, maybe I'm going to look into it, because if these guys are involved, or there is enough here that I need to go, I can't dismiss it, then kind of that's job done, as far as I see.
Yeah, good. Well, when more people are doing these sorts of things, I think that just 5 days not eating the whole time, that's very much a proof of concept. If people
Yes.
do study biochemistry, you understand that this is perfectly normal. And and then more and more athletes and professional athletes playing high impact, high exertional, high energy sports like rugby and soccer and things like that.
Yeah.
We're just running all the time, or track, decathlons, all these sorts of things. People are just just using tons and tons of energy, and then they go on this and they just get massive improvements. You know, at first it was sort of, one or two here and there. I mean, I've never felt better in my entire life, so I know that this works because, understand the biochemistry and I've seen it firsthand, and I just felt night and day difference. And like you said, it was like you're hungover every day of your life, and now you're
Yeah.
not. I know.
Yes.
It's just amazing. And those 5 years, it was like this little bright patch of my life of like just feeling like a god. And then it just went away, and I didn't know what the hell happened. It was like, why isn't that here? And now it's back. And now I'm in my 40s as well. I'm in my bloody mid 40s. And I feel like I'm 22 again. I feel better now at 44 than I did at 27 playing professional rugby.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the
Feel
same.
amazing.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's one of those things. It's like look, and part of where I started this was, it wasn't because I got into the science. It was I read a book by a guy by the name of Art Devaney. It was called The New Evolution Diet. It was a long time ago now, and I read it. He was very much around the evolutionary model and nothing, not too much sciencey. But the bit that got me, it's kind of, I always look for the exception to the rule, because that's where the little nuggets lie. Like, what are they doing differently that really works? And he was a guy at the time, he was in his 60s, but he had the body of like a 30-year-old, someone half his age, and his blood markers were the same and everything. So as a 60-year-old, he was like playing, touch rugby with his grandkids, and not
Mhm.
like, he's like first picked in the team. I was like, I want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to be just kind of, sitting on the sidelines watching. I want to be like in my later years still being active and fully living my life. So that was the piece that was like, right, if I can start that now and get on that path, then my life, I can live life to the fullest all the way to the end. Like, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So are you going to be doing more marathons now, or was that enough misery for one
Look, I
time?
don't know. I don't have any plans to. Like I said, I've never run a marathon before. Look, I'd love someone to do what I did. That's an actual athlete that has, some ability here that they could tap into. Like, I'm just your ordinary guy that's never run a marathon that did this. So look, would I run a marathon again? Never say never. And look, it was super hard, but it was without doubt the most satisfying thing that I've ever done. I'm certainly very proud of what I did. And like crossing that finish line, like, which was the official Sydney Marathon finish line, was the most amazing feeling after sort of 5 days of
Jeez.
you're in the hurt zone while you're running, but there's all that period in between. You can't make time go faster. So a 5 day period is a really long time to be sort of committed to this one sort of endeavor.
Mhm.
So having done that, the sense of accomplishment was huge. So it might be one of those things I'll be chasing that again forever, like in some other form. So whether it be marathons or something, it was the most amazing feeling. So I'm not going to strike it out, but also I like to test myself. So it's like, well, what else can I do? Like, where else can I take this? Yeah, some of the feedback I get is, look, why don't you try and do a fast marathon to compare? So that may be an option, but again, I'm not a runner, so I don't really know what that means. Um, yeah, I'll definitely do something, but I don't know what that'll be just yet.
Yeah. So what's your normal training schedule like? What were you doing before this?
So before this, definitely not running. So my running beforehand was, I did some like 10 years prior,
Mhm.
but my training now is purely calisthenics. So think like body weights, push-ups, pull-ups, that sort of thing. And I do it regularly, but not much. Like people, like, I don't go to a gym. I don't do anything. I don't do any sprinting or stuff
Mhm.
like that. I probably should. I'd like to, but it's I'm not a gym heavy guy. I'll do with my calisthenics. I'll do it a few times a week, but a lot of that is kind of stretching and mobility. So it's like, for me, it's functional. And the thing I like about calisthenics is you can build ability, but you don't look like you're super jacked. Like, it's not as though you're building muscle for muscle's sake. It's functional. So
Mhm.
it means I can lift and pull and push and be much stronger than what anyone would guess that I am just by looking at my physique. So I kind of like that stealth element to it. And that's the bit that I like. But it also plays into my longevity card, which is, look, if I can still move and get my body into positions that I can as a young person could, that's only going to bode well for me in my later years. So do the work now, or because you're going to pay for it at some point. So I'd rather earn it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So after all that, you didn't eat for 5 days.
Yeah.
What was your reward celebratory meal?
Yeah. Well, great question. Well, like in my mind, I actually went to my butcher before I did this and I bought the biggest steak I possibly could. Like it was a kilo and a half tomahawk thing. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to absolutely tear this apart when I finish. Um, that I was not hungry. I finished and I literally was not hungry at all. So people are like, oh, the fasting part, the fasting through this 5 days was the easiest thing
Mm,
of all of it. Like I did not think about food. The only time I thought about food was when I was like I journaled everything. So like what was my hunger score today? So I jot down a number for that. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about hunger, but it's kind of like if I say don't think about an elephant, well, you're going to think about an elephant, right? So when I'm having to document how hungry I am, well, it's there. But definitely not hungry at all, and the fasting was super easy. So my final meal, my meal after it all was ended up being like 2 hamburger patties and about 3 eggs, and I couldn't finish it. Like, and for me, that's like wouldn't even be an entree. Like that would
mm,
be like a side dish. So
yeah.
it probably took 3 days for me to my
Mm,
metabolism to kick back into gear, or my hunger, I should say, because I just wasn't hungry. Like I just
yeah.
didn't need it. I could have kept going.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because I experienced the same thing. So when I was first doing this in my 20s, I was just not eating enough because I didn't understand that my hunger signals were going to be dampened, and I didn't realize that hunger wasn't that I wasn't going to experience that same sense of hunger that I normally did, which
Yeah.
is really more of a starvation signal that you're getting pathologically from raised insulin, lowering blood sugar, and blocked leptin, and
Mm,
upregulated ghrelin. And so we think, oh my God, I'm starving, but that just we just think of that as hunger. That's just normal hunger, and then you don't feel that. And
mm,
so for days on end, I wouldn't be hungry, and so it'd be 3, 4 days sometimes that I wouldn't
yeah.
eat, and I wouldn't be hungry. But I would just be like, okay, well, this is ridiculous. I haven't eaten in, in 4 days, and I've been doing a
Yes.
lot of work. I was playing, I was in university, and I was playing rugby for the university team, and I was also playing for the premiership team in Seattle. And so I was just chock full of
Mm,
school and then working out for the rest of the day. I just wasn't eating for days at a time, but I just wasn't hungry. And I never really figured that out. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't hungry. But then eventually when it was just too much. It was after, a year and a half, 2 years of just really just grinding myself down. It was finally I started getting actually worse for how hard I was working out because I just wasn't eating enough. And then I eventually just said, okay, Alec, I have to eat. It doesn't matter. I'm just not hungry, but
mm,
I just have to eat no matter what
yeah.
because I clearly need the energy, and that helped, and I started feeling a lot better after that. But when I came back to this, that I was very conscious about not under eating. So I just made it a point to sort of eat every day. And then all of a sudden I had a steak and I was just like, it's not enjoying this. It's not tasting good. Like, what's going on? And then I realized, and then I stopped and I felt great the next day. And I realized, okay, that's what hunger is. That's how you test your hunger signals is taste. If it
Yes.
tastes good, your body's telling you you want it.
Yeah.
And then when it stops tasting good, that's when your body's saying you're fine. That's why I relay that to other people because I
Yeah.
figured that out myself. And and I didn't think that you needed to fast unless your body was telling you not to eat.
Mhm.
And but I tried it. I just wanted to sort of experience it and see what it was like. And the first day I wasn't eating. My body was just like, "Oh, hey, what's going on? Where's the steak?" And the next day I didn't even really think about it.
Yeah.
And so the next day I sort of did 4 days. And on the day that I was supposed to be eating, I just sort of felt I was like, I don't even really feel like eating. I sort of feel like not eating actually.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to get back into that old slump where I did before, where I just wasn't eating at all.
Yes.
And so I was just like, okay, well, I said I was going to start eating today, so I'm going to get back to eating today. And I did, but it was the same thing. I just had no appetite. It didn't even taste great. I sort of had a bit, but I had like quarter, half
Yeah.
of what I would normally have. And it was just kind of like, yeah, that's sort of all I wanted. And then it sort of, yeah, it took a few days before I was back eating to the same amount. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that was my experience. And look, even now, because I've been eating this way, very similar to yourself for a very long time.
Mm,
It's so liberating just eating to hunger. Like there are
yeah.
some days where I'll eat a lot, and people look at my plate and just go, "Oh my God, like where is that going?" It's a meal for four people, but and there's other days where I don't eat. And
Mm,
I was thinking about it. Most people, I would say, if I were to describe what feeling of satiated is. Like I think there's a belief that feeling full all the time means like you feel bloated and your stomach feels
mm,
full and it's heavy. Um, my realization is satiation is I get to dinner and go, "Well, have I eaten today or was that yesterday? I can't remember. Like it's not even on my radar of I need to go and find some food now. It's like I genuinely like don't remember if I ate or not today because there was no signal to tell me to do it. I was just going about my day or my normal business, and I wasn't sort of rigid to a clock of it's midday or 1 o'clock. I need to have lunch. It's like you know what, it's 6 o'clock. I haven't eaten today yet, and I still don't feel hungry. Like
mhm.
to me, that's satiation. It's not that feeling of being full all the time.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, the Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Yeah, definitely. And I routinely don't eat breakfast unless I have relearned my hunger signal, so I do know when my body's want some more food, and especially when I'm working out. And I'm back in the gym now, so I'm working out more, so my body just wants more. And so sometimes in the morning maybe I want something, so I'll have some of the leftovers or something like that. But generally I don't have breakfast, and I'll just work all day. I get home 7, 8 o'clock, and that's when I'll eat.
Mm,
Or which is more common, I'll have interviews like this, and or consultations online after I finish work at the clinic or the hospital, and
yeah.
then I'll go until 9, 10 o'clock, and then I'll eat.
Yes.
So it's but it's fine. I feel completely fine doing that,
Mm.
and it's I'm not hungry and starving all day. It's perfectly normal.
Speaking of the one thing we did miss just with my marathons was the only thing I was consuming was water and salt is a really big part of it. So if anyone's doing this, I definitely wouldn't be doing it without the salt element and the electrolytes. Like
Mhm.
it's really necessary. So dealing with my doctors beforehand, it was coming up with a strategy of like how much salt do we need to give you an idea. So for me, I was taking between and particularly on the hot days, anywhere between sort of 6 and up to 10 teaspoons of salt a day. So I'd be having it in my water bottles and the rest. And the other interesting thing in that 5 days through the whole thing, I did not get a single cramp, not one.
Mm.
Like, not even close. Like, oh, I'm feeling it a little bit, need to move it. Not one. So, um, uh, that's probably the other question I get in terms of things that break down. It was none of that, whether it was the salt intake or the whatever. But whatever I did, I managed that really well in terms of avoiding all cramps. But I was very much of the view overdo the salt because your body will excrete it. Not enough, then we have some problems. So
Mhm.
it was be very conservative from that side of things.
Yeah. And so how much water were you averaging on the day?
Uh, So it really escalated. I got one day wrong where I had too much, and that was really problematic because my
Hmm.
sodium levels dropped. Um, but on average, so every night I'd fill up, I call it six, they're kind of liter and a half water bottles, like your standard kind of sports drink bottle I'd fill up. So I'd fill that up with water. Three of those, no, four of those I'd have, no, three of those I'd have with salt, like literally just salt poured in it, a teaspoon and a half.
Mm.
And then I'd have salt tablets that I'd take with me that I would have the normal water because the salt water does make you thirsty on particularly
Mm.
hot days. So on average, what would that equate to? Somewhere between, I suppose, around 6 liters, I suppose,
Mm.
throughout the day. Um, and then maybe a little bit more than that. I kind of lost track of my water a little bit because I get handed a water bottle. I was running past like some friends or something that I would see. So and when it was 39 degrees, like I needed a lot. So the
Yeah.
interesting thing about that was I did have an issue with on the night before my final marathon. I had so much swelling in my legs due to the fact of the big error I did make was I took an anti-inflammatory after my
Mm.
second marathon. So I took one that night and the next day. Now I now learnt that anti-inflammatories do or can cause you to retain water.
Mm.
Uh, and so as I was drinking a lot of this, I was swelling up. So the night before my final marathon, like I said, I tracked everything. I weighed as much as I did before I started all my 5 marathons.
Mm.
So 4 marathons in, and I'm still weighing as much as I did when I started, and all of that was water. So on my final marathon, the night before, I had to sort of sleep with my legs in the air, like to drain out of the water out of my ankles. Um, which wasn't the best way to prepare for marathon number 5, I have to say.
No.
But I also then had to be really careful around not drinking too much. I needed to finish that race preferably dehydrated rather than having too much water because that could be like life-threateningly bad.
Mm.
Yeah, very hot day. 26 people went to hospital that day during that marathon. And like I'm running with the battlers at the back of the pack too, and there's a lot of people that are on stretchers and the rest while I was running past. But I had to go through every water station and just sort of have a tiny sip or just pour water on my head. I wasn't drinking at all because
Mm.
of my water issue in that last day.
Yeah, interesting. There's a guy named Charles Washington. He's been doing carnivore for 15 years, 20 years, something like that. Long time. I mean,
Wow.
he was sort of at the 12 to 15, yeah, 12-ish year, maybe longer when I got back into it 6 years ago. And
Mm,
so he runs a Facebook group called Zeroing In on Health. That's a carnivore group. It's a long-standing one,
mm,
and it's a really good one. That and zero carb health are my two favorite ones because they're very strict. They don't F around. They allow anybody in there, but it's just like you need to talk. You talk about things the right way,
yeah.
so as we don't get a whole bunch of 50,000 opinions on something. We just confuse the hell out of people.
Yeah, sure.
And he does marathons. But he does them fasted and
Mhm.
dry.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he won't drink water the whole day. So even the day, so he'll drink water and maybe eat the night before, but he won't drink water on the day. And potentially that's it. So he's not getting issues with salt depletion
Yeah.
and retention and things like
Yeah.
that could be. I never asked him that. I remember him talking about it once years ago, and I always meant to ask him about it, but I just never got around to it. And that could be why.
Yeah. Well, my plan was to like call it all those water bottles. I'm not drinking all of those during my marathons. So that would be my daily allowance. So a lot of that would be I'd be drinking during my run for the 5 or 6 hours, but then I've got sort of 10, 12, 14 hours until my next marathon. So it was like, right, our bodies are designed to do that. Like you
Mm,
go into deficit and then they'll recharge like everything they need and repair
mm,
during those periods. So I was very much tapping into that. So
yeah.
so the other question I do get, which is,
Mhm.
um, what it also gave me the confidence to do these marathons is, the whole idea of you need to eat before you run or do exercise is just bonkers because you think about it from an evolutionary point of view. We've been forced, like we are animals at our core, right? And
Mm,
um, we've been forced to move for arguably one of two reasons. You're either being chased by something or you're chasing something to eat it, right? To catch and kill. Neither of those things, in either of those situations, do you say, I need to eat before I do those. So if I'm going to get chased by a lion, I'm not going to have something to eat to give me the energy to get away from that lion. Like I'm just going to go. And likewise, if I'm the hunter, well, it's the hunger that's driving me to move. So the whole idea of doing something exceptionally, um, like an exceptional physical endeavor when you're fasted just makes complete evolutionary sense. Like that's kind of the state our bodies would have always been in when we're doing something much like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite often you see the opposite. You see when animals get the food that they need, they make a hunt, they make a kill, they eat. They don't go then do their workout, right? They,
No.
they go and sleep for 14 hours.
Yeah.
You rest and digest. You go into a different metabolic state. You have a lot of your blood going to your digestive tract to start utilizing and taking advantage of these nutrients that you've brought in.
Mm.
And that's the wrong time to start running a marathon or something
Yes.
else.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, no, so that's perfectly in keeping with uh you know our biological design, or just any animal's biological design. It doesn't make sense that you need to, because that's the thing, we need energy so we can go out and get energy. Food is our energy. You get up in the morning, you get the hit of cortisol, go kill something, hunt, make your kill, feed your family, procreate. That's what we're supposed to do. Now we have stupid TVs and internet and all this other crap, and we try to and no one knows what their meaning of life is, and they're just meaningless, and they just don't know. It's procreating, it's having kids, it's having a family. That's literally the meaning of life in
yeah.
a spiritual, religious, and biological sense, and
Mm.
evolutionary sense. It begins and ends right there. And you get up in the morning, your body gives you a hit of energy, and then you go kill something, you go,
Mm.
here's some energy, you go do it. So you exert yourself to get your food. You go and you work and you hunt and you get your food, and then you don't. And then you
Yeah.
just sit there and you chill out. So doing that the other way around, oh, you have to eat before or else you're in trouble. What kind of sense does that make? You
Yeah.
know, people think that you have to eat so that you can work out. No, you got to work out so you can eat. That's
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
And and you eat now. I mean, I did this too when that night that meat was just tasting, it wasn't tasting good, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? So I love steak. Steak's amazing. Why am I not enjoying this right now? And I just stopped eating. But the next day, I felt amazing, and then it dawned on me, because I was thinking, I was just like, just did like a 6 hour workout today. I'm gonna do a 6 hour workout tomorrow. Like I need this,
Mm.
right? Not realizing that I was still, you know, chubby bastard. So like I had more than enough energy to, to go weeks,
Yes.
without any problem.
Yeah.
And and then the next day I just felt amazing. And then it dawned on me, it's like, okay, you're not, when you go work out, you're not burning the energy from the food that you ate yesterday or that morning. You're
Mm.
burning the energy that you ate 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
you know? And so, you just have that in your stomach, and that energy, oh, now I can use it. Like,
Yeah.
no, that goes in your bank account,
Yeah.
and then you take a withdrawal, so we need to sort of think about this correctly, and especially for kids growing up, coming
Yeah.
up and being in sports, because they're just getting fed this nonsense. Oh, you have to eat this 4,000 calorie carb and sugar slushy thing before you go and
Yeah.
play a game or do a practice. No, you don't. In fact, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, there's a
Back,
whole cultural element here now, like here in Australia, where I'm sure it's probably around the world, but like for kids, like carnivores, like school carnivore, like are going to do run 100 meters, and
yeah.
it's like, right, you need to have a bag of jelly beans at the start line just to make sure you have enough energy to get there. It's
Oh
like
my
this is
God.
insane. It's a real thing. Like everyone packs, like mums and dads pack, like buy actual lollies to put in
Mm,
their bags to give out to other kids so that everyone has enough energy to get through that day of like these little events. It's like it's absolutely insane.
yeah. No, that is. I mean, how did they get there? I mean, how do you get the energy to get to the starting line? It's 100 meters.
Yeah.
It's not that far.
Yes.
I think you'll make it. Put a
Yeah.
sandwich on the finish line. Like you'll get there.
Yeah.
But I mean, how bad is that we've diminished the species to such an extent that we think that we need to just suck up on candies and chocolate and nonsense just to
Mm.
have the energy to run a lap at
Yes.
at the gym, at the park. It's like we have fallen so far.
Yeah.
you know, from taking down woolly mammoths, herds of woolly mammoths with spears and rocks and ropes and fire and things like that, pit
Mm.
traps. And now people are just so physically and mentally weak.
Yes.
They've been enfeebled, you know, and I don't think no one did this on purpose to themselves,
Yeah.
but I think it's been done on purpose to us, though. I think that we've just been peppered with this information about no, 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 that's dangerous. Oh, that's going to hurt you, and that's going to be this, and we just turn into these just precious little creatures that just can't possibly do anything for ourselves, or or put up a fight if people want to put us in chains.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that's by mistake. I think people are saying, no, you can't eat meat. You got to eat,
Yeah.
grains and plants and Soylent Green and all these sorts of things. And like, and you're not able to and allowed to just eat what your body's designed to eat. And you're told that it's bad for you. And then people getting weaker and sicker, and they're being told that that's normal. That that's
Mm.
completely normal. That's how it's always been. In fact, we're the healthiest now than we've ever been. And if
Yeah.
anybody believes that, they need to get their head examined. But I
Yeah.
see people saying this. I see people saying this. No, 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 no. All these diseases, they're only going up because of screening. I was
Mm.
just like, well, you don't know how that works then, clearly. And you clearly have never seen anyone with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. You're getting 40 bouts of bloody diarrhea a day. Like, yeah, it was just a screening issue that we didn't catch that.
Yeah.
It's like if only we had screening, then we would have been owned. It's like, okay, by the way, you may have Crohn's. And really?
Mm.
Do you have bloody diarrhea 40 times a day? You know what?
Yeah. I
I
should have
think I
mentioned that.
do. I think I might. Hmm. I mean, this is stupid. These are stupid people saying stupid things. Autism rates, 1 in 10,000 in the 1970s. Now it's 1 in 34, and
Mm.
1 in 22 males. 1 in 22 males out of 1 in 10,000
Mm.
40 years ago. That's not screening.
Mm.
You know, we are damaging entire generations of people. We are destroying their brains and stopping them from developing properly, stopping their bodies from developing properly. This is a criminal act on the largest scale that we've ever seen before, and we are destroying entire generations of people. And and I unless we turn this around, this isn't going to recover very well, and people are
Mm.
going to be extremely damaged. And who knows? And they make meat illegal, and they make it impossible to get for normal people, and
Mm.
only the elites are going to be able to afford it. You've got Zuckerberg on an island in Hawaiian Islands with a massive ranch with a whole bunch of Wagyu cows, and $100 million bunker that's going to that can survive nuclear fallout. It's just like, what does he know that we don't? you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
like, why is it that he has a whole bunch of cows? He's just like, this is enough food to last me forever,
Mm.
if it comes to it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna wipe out the the cattle supply and things like that. Now you've got these rich people that just happen to have a herd of cows, and they're
Yeah.
gonna take care of themselves, and everyone else is gonna be screwed.
Yeah.
I mentioned Soylent Green, but if people haven't seen that, like that's what we're looking at. It's an old Charlton Heston movie, and it's about 50 years in the future. This was made in was it the 70s or something like that. And it's about the far off distant future of 2022 in New York.
Mm.
And they made everything just completely difficult to get, just normal commodities, or just like they're looking at this as like, oh my goodness, like no one sees this, you can't get it. Everything's just processed food, just like these little chips and crackers and things like that. Just these little bars of things. That's food now.
Yeah.
And the older people are like, this isn't what food is. We used to have eggs and meat. You could just buy it at the store. Like, yeah, 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 we heard you before. And but that's where we're going.
Mm.
They found some beef. Like, look at this, it's beef. Oh my God, it was just this amazing thing. They could actually get this. And and that's where we're going. Like, people don't
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll never happen. Read the Gulag Archipelago. It happens, and it can happen to very advanced societies and free societies.
Mm.
And it happens all the time. And it's you're sort of having these nations sort of drop and drop and drop. So, you know, we people think that it's just people trying to do the right thing. Oh, we're just doing the best we can. It's not. It's
Mm.
absolutely not. You know, like oppressive, oppressive uh would-be dictators have forever, or real dictators have since time immemorial cut off meat supply to the peasant class
Mm.
and the serf class in order to keep them suppressed and docile.
Yes.
And so, you know, and it kept that meat and those and that food for the elites.
Mm.
And this is just going right back to how humanity has, or civilization has been for thousands and thousands, basically forever.
Mm.
Um, there are people that want to control other people, and this is part of how you do that. We've
Mm.
had a good run for the last couple hundred years, but you know, you get too satisfied, you get too comfortable, um, that can go away, and it
Yeah.
generally does. You know, none of these nations last. None of these areas of freedom last. All the Greek democracies ended up in tyranny. The Roman Republic ended up in a tyranny and then collapsed completely. You know, and you know, if we're not careful, that'll happen to us too. And so, you know, you need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your family. You need to understand what's good for you, and and fight for your right to be healthy
Yeah.
and not eat crap.
Mm. I really feel for, we call it your average person that hasn't spent time or been fortunate enough to dig into maybe ask the questions and say, right, like how does this actually work, which not many people do. So your average person follows the narrative, which, as you've explained, is it's largely misinformation. So they've got the wrong information that they believe is gospel truth. And the other element is, it's not just the information, there's an addiction element too, as well. When you eat this junk food, the sugar hit all the time, it's like, right, I just need to do this. I need to eat all the time because biologically, you know, that's what happens. It causes you, like, kills your satiety and the rest. And you're in this forever sort of chasing your tail, trying to get to that next meal. So I think it's the combination of those two that really makes it very difficult for your average person to break out of that cycle and go, right, how do I kind of get back on the path of what is true health? So I'm hoping, look, even with what I did with my marathons, it's like, right, for the person that goes, look, I woke up this morning, I had breakfast, look, it's 11 o'clock and I'm starving. How on earth am I going to get through to midday? Like, I ran 5 marathons in 5 days, completely fasted, and it was fine. Like, I reckon you can get through the morning. So, and that's the starting point. It's like people go, I can get through the morning and I can get to lunch, and you know what? I feel good. You go, if I could do that, not that it's about trying to not eat all the time. It's like, well, hang on, what other things can I question here that I thought were gospel truths? Because here's an example of something that completely goes against everything I thought was possible. So it's trying to buck that trend a little bit of like, this is how evolution, or sorry, how society is going. Unfortunately, we've got tools like, you know, love it or hate it, social media, and you know, your platform and the rest, that is able to give, you know, people like me just a small chance to have a little bit of a voice and say, right, like, be aware that there are other ways to do things, and hopefully that can, you know, light a few, you know, sparks or fires or whatever you want to call it in people's to minds, to kind of get moving and sort of think about this and get on the right path.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, I think it's absolutely amazing what you did, and just to show that you could, and just show people that they can as well. And hopefully, this opens up a lot of eyes and people that to know exactly what our bodies are capable of, and that what we've been told and what we're being told to not trust our eyes, and just you know, believe them, and listen to them for the limits of our own being, even though we're seeing the exact opposite in real life.
Mm.
So thank you for doing that. Thank you for just you know, bucking the trend and just saying, hey, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for big air 5 days, and showing that you can absolutely do this. You know, and you know, do people say that, well, those, you know, could have done those faster or whatever. Like you said, you're not a runner. This is what you train for. That's really not the point. The point
No.
is that you run a marathon in 5 hours or 2 hours or 200 hours. You're still having to run 26 plus miles,
Yes.
and you did it 5 days in a row, and you have your basal metabolic rate, and you have, to deal with all the other things you're doing in that day, and so that's still just it's already proving the fact that it's like you don't need to eat carbs,
Yes.
period. And in fact, you don't even need to eat before you do a major event like this, or 5 major events like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
because your
Uh,
body has more than enough energy. So at
And
least,
I do say ingest. So those that say, "Oh, look, you could have done it faster," it's like, look, more than happy to compare times. So show
yeah,
me your 5 fasted marathon time, and then tell me if
yeah,
that's how
exactly.
that
Show
goes.
show me your five fastest marathons in 5 days, and I'll show you
Yes.
my fastest 5 marathons in five
Yeah, yeah.
days.
I'm sure. Look, hats off to anyone that's going to do it, and more than happy to be beaten there as well. But it's you can have a bit of a laugh about all that. But
Yeah,
at
no,
the end of
but
the day, it was proving a different point.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great to talk to you for the time we had. Hopefully, people enjoyed that as much as I did. Can you please tell us where to find you, and how to look at more of your work?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a website, ketomarathons.com, and then you can find me on socials on across all the platforms at handle at Keto Marathons, and on X or Twitter, it's keto_marathons. So yeah, find me all there, and yeah, follow me for more info. But I have documented everything too. I've got a crazy amount of data, so I'm kind
Hmm.
of drip feeding that out. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's
perfect.
a lot of cool stuff to look at.
Nice. Well, we'll put those in the description, and people can take a look at that and follow you for more. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great. And thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do hit the like, and leave a comment, and share this with anybody who maybe thinks that you do need to eat before running 5 marathons in 5 days, or anybody else who doesn't think that this is something that is possible to do, or you have to have carbs to be an athlete, which you clearly don't. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you saw, please do hit subscribe to find out or get a notification when we have more videos coming out, which is pretty much every day and twice a week for new content and lives as well. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.